All right, Lunger, let's do it. I'm ya Huckleberry. Oh, we started something back there we never got to finish. Well, hello and welcome back into another MBE Entertainment News. My name's Jonathan, in case you didn't catch the last stream. I'm Jonathan C. Walsh, Christopher Walsh. I'm the host on the stream tonight, and joining me to the left is Stephen John McLaughlin, and he's a co-host on the stream, the show, tonight. And Stephen, in this one we're going to be talking about not Paul Walker and Vin Diesel reuniting in a new Fast and Furious franchise or movie. We're going to be talking about Bond, James Bond, shaken, not stirred. I was actually watching Sean last week playing James Bond. I think it was, I can't remember, he was older. I think he was about 40, 41. It was an older James Bond. He started quite old. And I was watching it. It was the one with, I can't remember, doesn't matter. But we're talking about James Bond, Stephen, and a report coming from Forbes by Paul Tassi, the senior contributor at Forbes. I know Paul worked very well, read his work before, and he's, we'll bring it up. I mean, I'll read his word instead of actually speaking it and doing it sort of ad lib. It says Amazon's reported James Bond casting choices are worrying. Now, this is an opinion piece, and it does say that, and it is an opinion, to be fair. This isn't a factual statement, because I don't think they're worrying at all. But we'll get into that. Amazon just announced that legendary filmmaker, this is news to me, Stephen, this shows you how off the fucking pulse I am in terms of movie news. The news that legendary filmmaker Denis Villeneuve would be taking the helm of its acquired, set to be rebooted James Bond franchise, drawing near universal praise for the pick. That is a fantabulous choice of director, and truly wondrous director, Denis. And of course, doing the last Dune film. He's making a trilogy. It's based on Dune Messiah, I want to say. It's going to be set many years into the future, and we're going to see the sort of the fruits of Paul Atreides' labour, warts and all, and the sort of violence that erupted out of this Messiah-like figure, rising up and becoming the Emperor of the galaxy. We know that's coming to an end after that movie, so he's going to have a free calendar. So it kind of makes sense for Denis to take the helm of Bond, James Bond. Stephen, he's done this kind of stuff before with Sicario. It's action-based, it's fresh, it was hard-hitting. They were brilliant films. The first one in particular was brilliant. I think Denis was involved in Sicario 2 as well. I'm not entirely sure. Certainly Sicario 1, though, was fucking incredible. Performances from Benicio del Toro, Josh Brolin, Emily Blunt. It was a fabulous film. So we know he can do sci-fi, we know he can do just about everything, but we can say for sure he can do this kind of movie. So that is, right off the bat, a phenomenal choice as a filmmaker. What a decision has been made by Amazon there, and what a coup try to actually secure a guy of that ilk who can do just about everything or anything he wants. So off the bat, I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Were you aware that Denis?
John, we were actually going to talk about that last Monday, but we ended up doing the. I can't remember what we were doing actually. I think we may have just.
We did have two. We did have two topics. We had three topics.
I think we ended up doing reactions last Monday because we were going to do the Paul is Dead podcast, which we did on Friday. So it was maybe last week this news broke, John, and it was something I really did want to talk about. So we can shoehorn that in. So that's great. John, you're absolutely right. When you think about Sicario, a very grounded thriller, a very human thriller, and that's something that works with modern James Bond, because when Daniel Craig stepped into the role 15 years ago, whatever it was, I can't remember, it's so long ago now, wasn't it? Maybe not as long as that, maybe 11 years ago.
2006, I think it was, so yeah, it's about, 19 years ago.
They really went back to making it, as not as extravagant as the previous Bonds, from the 80s and 90s and even before that, but they really went back to, what James Bond was all about. And so when you bring in Denis Villeneuve, and we've seen his previous work away from Dune, obviously Dune is the sort of what we talk about the most on this
Blade
show
Runner.
because
Did they do Blade Runner?
both parts. But I think in terms of bringing him in, I don't know how long term he's committed to the franchise, but I think it needs someone like him to sort of reignite that sort of interest in the franchise, because I think it needs it, and I know we're going to get into it. It needs to be the right person as well to hit the ground running, and that will be one of the sort of major decisions that he's going to be involved in, the casting.
Just check to see if he done Day of Soldado, because I've got it in my head he didn't. It was Stefano Salima that did it, but he was involved as a producing sort of figure. I knew he wasn't involved as a director in Soldado. It wasn't as good, to be fair. Day of Soldado, it was still a good film, but nowhere near the first. The first one, there was just something about that film, the characters, and it was Emily Blunt as well. She was missing from the second film, and she was almost like the humanity in the first Sicario, whereas these two guys, Josh Brolin and Benicio, was just vicious, obviously officials for the state. They were like fucking drug enforcement people, or like CIA, I can't remember, but they were vicious, fucking animalistic, and we see it with Benicio at the end. He's like a man gunning for blood, or just fucking smelling blood in the water. He obviously is tracking down this guy responsible for it. I want to see been involved in his... It's been a while since I've seen it. I think it was something happened with his family, and he wipes out his family at the end. So, I mean, that was just a special film for me. One of my favourites in Arrival and Blade Runner. Denis a phenomenal director. I don't think I've seen a film from that guy I've disliked on any level. So that's getting me excited right off the bat. In terms of where they're moving with the franchise, they've got a real accomplished director involved. So that's a great choice. Also moving on to the actors, Stephen, and this is where they're saying it's potentially worrying. Well, Paul Tassie's saying it's worrying. And I can get what he's saying, Stephen. It's the age. It's the age thing. Daniel Craig was in his 40s. I think he was about 42, 41 when he was cast as Bond, and he worked the character right up until he was in his 50s, late 50s. And that's what you think of when you think of James Bond. You think of Sean Connery. I know Sean was about 34 when he was initially cast as 007, but he was an old-looking 34, man. People done a side-by-side comparison not long ago of him and a current-day actor of the same age, and he looked about... Who was it?
It was Chalamet.
Was Chalamet? He looks about fucking 20 years older. So he was an old-looking mid-30s. So when you think of James Bond, you think of this accomplished, sort of worldly, grisly, mature individual. He's been about the block many, many times. He's streetwise, he's cunning. He's older. You don't think of fresh-faced 20-somethings. And I think this is where Paul's getting at when he says it's worrying, because they're very, very young. And yet they're not very, very young. They're getting older, these guys. You think they're young and you still think they're like 21 and 22. They're in their late 20s now. Jacob Elordi.
The thing is as well, and it's something that Bond has always done, is that they don't cast someone who's blockbuster material, like at the sort of pinnacle of their powers in the cast. It's someone that's sort of well known in terms of the industry, whether that be Sean Connery or Roger Moore or Timothy Dalton. It's always someone that people know about. You know, they've done
Brosnan.
plenty of roles and stuff like that. Daniel Craig's very similar, certainly, you know, in the UK. So I get obviously the list that we're looking at just now. That kind of fits into that, you know. And I think what the term here is probably is longevity. That's the strategy, I think, in terms of getting the right cast, getting the right James Bond in the role for a long time. Because it's almost like an event, you know. James Bond's it's such a unique thing. It's not like, what can I say? You know, the comparison to it would probably be in TV terms would be the next Doctor Who, I suppose. It has to be a certain person, and if it's not right, it doesn't wash well with the audience, because you know, James Bond fans are very committed to this franchise, you know, and very passionate and loyal to the books as well from Fleming. So they have to make sure they're getting this right, and it has to be something that I would say they don't want to keep chopping and changing over, maybe 2 or 3 years, keep recasting the character. I think in terms of Daniel Craig, he was very committed to the role, very passionate about the role as well. But like every actor, they've got a shelf life, and I think that's probably in their minds. Going forward, it's such a drag, it's such a drain in terms of
That's a commitment, Stephen.
Such an iconic character, and getting that right. But John, looking at some of them, I think the Lordie's probably the one that stands out the most for me.
Yeah.
I know he's Australian. I think
he's Australian, but he can do a great English accent, as we've seen in Saltburn. Yeah. Not that he has to be English.
I think George Lazenby was Australian, wasn't he?
I don't know, Stephen. I don't know any of the other actors other than Connery, Brosnan, Daniel Craig. That's it. And obviously, even now I'm forgetting them. You've literally just round them off. Timothy Dalton and the other guy, Roger Moore. Roger Moore. I do know Roger Moore. Timothy Dalton, I always want to call him fucking Roger Daltrey. For some reason, I combine Roger Moore and Timothy Dalton together.
George Lazenby did one film. It just wasn't well received. I don't know if it was to do. I think he's Australian. I might be wrong. I can't remember. I'd have to look it up. But he did one. I think it was on Our Majesty's Secret Service. I think that was his one and done film. And I think that's always in the minds of obviously the franchise as well, that they don't want to take that chance again.
Well, I mean,
I think
to be fair,
in terms of Daniel Craig, I think they want to watch, because I remember watching Daniel Craig in quite a few films in the early 2000s, and they were very gritty and very. I think I'm trying to remember what one of them was called.
Casino Royale. You had Skyfall. God, I'm trying to think of the other ones now. Fucking hell. I'd need to search him up, to be honest. But Stephen, I like Craig. I like Craig. I like him as an actor.
I like him very much as an actor, John.
I like him as an actor anyway. There was a great movie I watched. It's probably not been highly rated, but it was his family had died and he was just living this hermit sort of life in this just fucking tragic looking house on a street, and it was quite an interesting performance from him. He had long hair in it. I really do enjoy Daniel as an actor. I thought he was great as Bond. I thought he'd get a lot of shit for his looks. Obviously, he was blonde. He was too short at fucking 5'11" or whatever he is to play Bond. He was getting a lot of critics going after him for things that he can't really change. You can't change the colour of your... Well, you can change the colour of your hair, but you can't change what you were given from birth. And you can't change your height. I mean, it's...
Layer Cake was the film, John.
What was it called?
Layer Cake.
Oh, Layer Cake. Was that the one I'm talking about?
I'm not sure. I just remember, it was out.
Oh, you talking about that one? Yeah.
It was a fantastic film, and he really stood out in the role as well. I think he played, I don't know what his name was again. I think it was a code name or something he had. But it was a great film. So when it was obviously doing the rounds, back in 2004, 5, about the casting of James Bond, I think that I don't want to say I was worried about it, because I'm not a massive James Bond fan, but when he was announced, it did obviously pique my interest to go back and watch it. And I thought obviously that first film he did was fantastic. It was a really good film. Casino Royale, wasn't it?
Casino Royale,
yeah. Amazing performance and such a great actor, John. We saw him in films like Logan Lucky, which was a great film, comedic, sort of dark comedy, and he's been in so many films. Munich, The Golden Compass is another one that stands out.
Benoit Blanc.
Yeah. Cowboys and Aliens with Harrison Ford, of course. So he had range, and that's what they have to look for in this. Not particularly, obviously, for James Bond as a whole, but I think in terms of it has to be someone with charisma. It has to be someone that's got that kind of dark humour about them as well. I think that's key.
No, it is.
And thinking of Jacob Elordi, I think he
would be my choice out of those three. He would definitely.
In terms of obviously what he brings to what I have seen him in, I don't think it would be the worst decision.
No, I mean, he's got the presence, he's certainly got the stature. I think he's about 6'6" or something. He's very, very tall. We know he can wear a suit well. He's a great actor. He's got a good bit of sort of maverick energy and personality about him. He's young enough. You need to remember they're putting the feelers out for a casting choice here in 2025, but this movie's probably still a couple of years away. So by that point, he's in his
Possibly, yeah.
30s.
Yeah.
And then by the time it
Tom
comes out...
Holland's about to start his next Spider-Man trilogy.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's going to be in the running for this.
Stephen, I love Tom as an actor. I do like him as a person as well, but I just don't think he's not the right fit for James Bond for me. He's not got... there's just something about him that ain't right for James Bond for me.
Yeah.
He's not a James Bond actor. He's too short. I mean, if Daniel Craig was getting tanned for being too short, this guy's significantly smaller than fucking Daniel Craig. Like, significantly smaller. He could wear stilts and not be the same height as Daniel Craig. So I'm not having this guy as James Bond. I think he's like 5'7".
It's not so much the physical side of things.
No, but you can't have a 5'7" James Bond.
I think you've got to be a certain physicality anyway. So it's Taron Egerton's another one, a fine actor, great actor. I don't think I've seen him in a bad film, but do I see him as a James Bond? I'm not suggesting for a minute they're even considering him, but no, I don't see him.
No.
It's not got the same sort of presence and demeanour, as you would expect from a James Bond, an actor playing the character. So,
and he looks younger than his years as well. He's not an actor that looks like 29. He looks like 24, 25. He looks young for his years.
Voice as well. It's got a lot to do with it. Tom's got a very youthful energy about him, and that does not come across well for James Bond.
Well, Bond has to be suave. He has to be grizzled. He has to have an edge to him. He has to. There's a menace to James Bond. Like, we know he's a good guy, but we know that he'll do what's necessary to get the job done. It's like Sam Tyler Jacket. He's stylish, he's cool. He knows what he wants. He's...
John Simmons?
Yeah, John Simmons, yeah. I was trying to think of the other. It's not stylish, cool, it's something else. He's stylish. He's sophisticated. I can't remember it. Sam Tyler Jacket. That's not Tom Holland for me. Harris Dickinson, I've heard his name, Stephen. I would be lying if I said I'd seen any of his films, but just based off of visuals, I could certainly see him playing James Bond. I could. He's got the look, he can wear a suit, he's definitely got that physicality in terms of size of him, and he's going to be bulking up for the role. They all do it. So he's got a sort of, the raw resources are there on a physical level for this guy to play James Bond. He's broad in the shoulder, he looks tall. I don't know how tall he is, but he looks tall. I don't know much about him, but just purely based off of an aesthetic, he does look as though he could play Bond. For me, though, out of that list, it would be Jacob Elordi, 100%. Admire the guy as an actor. I like the energy he brings to press junkets, like punching people and stuff like that for asking stupid questions. He looks mature for his years. And from a purely longevity sort of standpoint, I can understand going for a younger actor.
Yeah.
If you're going to
I think Harris Dickinson is committed to these Beatles films as well. He's playing John Lennon.
So he is, yeah.
There's going to be a big commitment. He's going to appear in the George film, the Ringo film, the actual John Lennon biopic, and the Paul McCartney one. So I think he's going to be pretty busy for the next 3 or 4 years. So, but saying that, I think he's a type. As I mentioned before, he's in and around. He's making a name for himself. He's at the right age, and when you look at his past films, he's appeared in. How big a roles these were, I'm not really sure, because I'm like you, John. I don't really know. I know he was in obviously The Kingsman. He was in that. He was in Where the Crawdads Sing. Sorry, he was in See How They Run as playing Richard Attenborough. So I think he's at that sort of point in his career where he's known enough, but I think once he does the John Lennon stuff, his name is going to be too big. Yeah, potentially. It depends on how those movies go. But if Sam Mendes, isn't it, is doing that? Of course, he worked on Casino Royale with Daniel Craig. Funnily enough, he did a Bond movie. I can't remember which one. So yeah, it's potential. There's a potential that he could be too big a name in terms of. But I'd argue Elordi's already a big name. He's got a lot of sort of fans, he's well known, so he's already at that stage. But Stephen, I looked it up. MGM were acquired by Amazon for $8.5 billion 3 years ago. Amazon have already worked on Rings of Power. That aside, I'll get into that in a moment. That's a concern for me. They are going to want a return on their investment
they're not going to want to hire a 40, 50-year-old Bond. You're going to get 2-3 movies out of, if that. And then they have to go through rebooting it all again and all the ball ache of doing that. They'll want someone in there, in place, who's young enough to play this character for over a decade. So they've got an established name, a great actor. They can surround them with talent like Denis Villeneuve, maybe moving forward other directors come in, and they get a return on their investment over a decade. And that's what someone like Bezos, he's a businessman, fucking billionaire, he knows what he's doing, he's switched on. He'll be thinking about it from a strategic sort of viewpoint, what to get my money back on this acquisition. I mean, they're not worrying about 8.5 billion, that's chicken feed for Amazon, but still, they'll want to get a return. So I can understand why they're going down the younger route. It's just out of these three, he still looks pretty young, but he could just about get away with it. He's way too young looking. He's not got the physicality, he's not got the voice. He never worked for Bond for me. I always thought, nope, that's not James Bond. This guy could definitely play Bond. He's got the size, he's got the acting chops. He looks kind of mature for his years. I'm not saying he looks old, but he could pull it off. He's got a bit of gruffiness to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean, I don't know how long we've been talking about, obviously, you know, recasting James Bond. I think it's been a good 7 or 8 years now since we started doing this. And, you know, it's incredible to think that one of our first sort of conversations, it'll be on a podcast or one of our shows. And at that point, because it was so long ago, we were talking about people like Cillian Murphy and
Tom Hardy. Idris Elba.
Yeah, Idris Elba. You know,
Richard Madden.
Yeah, they're all too old now.
Sam Heughan. Yeah.
They're all, you know.
It's
so
mad to think how long it's been going. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But also they've been acquired, the studio, Barbara Broccoli, the Broccoli family, who were the sort of caretakers of the film sort of side of things. They have relinquished control of it, stepped aside, so there's been a lot of political manoeuvring and discombobulation going on in terms of the franchise and who owns it and who's got creative control over it. Now that's been settled, they're moving forward with it, then I'm sure we'll get a casting choice pretty quickly. Stephen, the final thing I would say on it though is the whole Rings of Power thing. That's a red herring for me, that's a big concern, because that was Amazon buying over MGM. I believe it was MGM, maybe it was disconnected completely, it probably is disconnected, but they bought the rights to The Lord of the Rings, the appendices from The Lord of the Rings, and they wanted to tell a story, and it was just a fucking disaster for me. The first couple of episodes were really slow. I was willing to give it a sort of buy, let them away with it because of the beautifulness of the actual visuals. To be fair, they went in, the costume design, CGI and stuff like that, pretty fucking impressive. But the story, really underwhelming, forcing some nonsense in there that wasn't required, modernising a story that's 80 years old. And I understand you need to bring some modernity, but you don't take works from a renowned writer and change them that much. You've got a passionate fan base who literally study this guy's languages, they study the world, the maps that he created. They're incredibly passionate and they want it done right. And I feel like they shat on top of it with a lot of the stuff. And it was just ultimately a boring, horrible TV show to the point where I didn't even watch the second season. My concern is it's potentially the same executives that are involved moving forward with Bond. Yeah. And you could see a similar thing happening.
What I would say about that, John, is that, you know, I would totally agree with that and I would be concerned about it. But I think in terms of bringing Denis Villeneuve on board, I don't think he's the type of director that would put up with nonsense. John, we saw after Dune Part 1, he announced Part 2 before the studio announced it. Mm-hmm. So I think he's a strong enough character to be able to deal with these studio execs, you know, if they want to go down political sort of nonsense, you know, and messaging and stuff like that, and bringing sort of real world politics into, you know, a franchise that doesn't need it, and it certainly doesn't need it just
now. No, it doesn't.
It's something that can kill the franchise, you know, and it's a franchise that's been going for the best part of 60, 70 years now. So,
to be fair though, Stephen, it did need modernising when Craig came in, because there was still tropes in there about the Bond girls and the misogyny surrounding Bond himself and the way women were treated in the films was horribly outdated. they obviously got a lot of inspiration from the Bourne movies and a couple of other movies that came out around about that time, action franchises that were doing things refreshing, the sort of genre. And it was modern and it felt different. They obviously seen that and had to move with the times, and we got that with Craig, to be fair. There was a change. I'm not saying they completely destroyed the character, he still loves his women and that's fine. But they changed the character enough and modernised the franchise. We don't have to do any more with it now. We still need to be a guy that's playing James Bond. We're not wanting a fucking female Jane Bond. That can't happen. We cannot have a Jane Bond. It's got to be James. It's got to be a guy. I don't care what his ethnicity is, I don't care where he's fucking from. It just has to be a guy, and then just do it right. I said that was a concern, but you're absolutely right, Stephen. Denny would not stand for it. He's not putting his name to this if it's not getting done right. I'd imagine he grew up watching the Bond movies, much like he grew up reading Frank Herbert's Dune novels, and he'll have a passion for doing this and doing it right. He's not going to put his reputation on the line for fucking shite like that. So I'm confident Denis coming in. No, he's not, Stephen. He's not a guy of that standing. He's one of the greatest filmmakers on earth just now. He's not going to put his reputation. He doesn't have to do it. The guy can make anything he wants. He's not going to come in and be told, look, we're forcing all this political pish into the film and completely trashing the story and ruining the film's box office before it even comes out. Because that's what these companies do now. They just force feed this shit in and it kills the movie. Because people are bored with it, even if they're sympathetic to what you're trying to portray. They're just that browbeaten by it now. They just do not want to see it in films and in TV shows. For fuck's sake, just tell a good story.
I think it was one of the reasons, John, I moved away from the Rings of Power. I think I may have watched it a little bit more than yourself, which is unusual because, you know, when it comes to Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, you're very much more committed than myself to the stories and stuff. But I think I maybe have watched 5 or 6 episodes of it, but it quickly became very boring to me. You know, even away from the sort of, you know, real world politics that they were shoehorning in. It just wasn't, the pacing and everything for me was just not what I expected it to be. You know, a lot of bad decisions in terms of how they structured it. Some of the casting as well just didn't sit with me at all.
Oh, terrible. Honestly, terrible. Fucking dreadful. Oh, I can't get back to watch it. It's incredible. I can't really. I think
the next time I revisit that world will be the Andy Serkis directed film.
Well, yeah, but there's another thing came out as well. We reacted to an animated thing about Rohan, the Rohirrim, and that looked pretty good. That's something I'd definitely be interested in looking at. I can't remember what that was called, but I'd want to go and watch that. It's like an anime kind of Lord of the Rings film. And it looked pretty good. But yeah, I forgot about the circus stuff. Yeah, that's the Search for Smeagol, isn't it? Or the Hunt for Gollum. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. You put circus.
Search for Smeagol.
Search for Smeagol. But technically it is the Search for Smeagol because Gandalf was very switched on and he quickly ascertained that Gollum, he could track him back to this little tribe of hobbits. They're not hobbits, but they kind of were. They were sort of seafaring hobbits on the river. Further out, they weren't even part of the Shire, and he quickly identified it was Smeagol. So I don't think they called it Search for Smeagol. It's the Hunt for Gollum. But that's me just flexing my knowledge. Smeagol.
The fan-made film that's on YouTube.
Search for Smeagol. YouTube. Fuck's sake, it's probably on a dodgy porno website. Search for Smeagol, it's a euphemism. Oh God. Oh dear, but no, that was terrible. But thankfully, you're right, Stephen. My fears have been assuaded pretty quickly because Denis involved and there's no way Denis feel now with his standings coming on board and putting up with that push. This is a guy that literally says, nope, this film ain't getting streamed until it's had the release in theatres. I don't give a fuck whether there's a pandemic or not. It's not happening. That was before or after the pandemic, wasn't it? That was during the pandemic because we went and seen it. And to be fair, no, it did fucking stream. I'm talking shite, it did stream, but he forced it to go out in the theatres as well. And to be fair, you're right, he did. He put part 2 or something, or part 1 at the end of the film, and we were like, fucking hell, that's ballsy. I read that if it didn't hit a certain number of views on the streaming platform, it wasn't getting out. There wasn't a part 2.
We were doing the live stream at the time when it was announced. They was doing part 2. We kind of knew that anyway. It was not the worst kept secret in the world, but I just remember that happened. You know, it was officially announced by the show, but
Yeah.
the director forced their hand on that. You know, he knew that it was a big story to tell, and there's no way he could put that into one film. You know, and it'll be the same. You know, in terms of storytelling, Denis Villeneuve, you know, is. I think in terms of fans of the director, I think we're all confident when he appoints someone like him to manage, you know, the film, or in this case, the franchise. I don't know how committed he is to the franchise, but I think prior to that, I had no interest in James Bond going forward after Daniel Craig. When that was announced last week, it piqued my interest, and then now we're talking about the casting and some of the possibilities that are in there. It certainly has reinvigorated my interest in the franchise once more.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't think it's worrying. If they're going down a younger route, as long as they're appropriate for the role, you can have a younger guy that's mature beyond his years. I think Jacob can play a Bond that's mature beyond his years. Obviously, like I says, without rehashing, Tom Holland is a no-no for me. The other guy, Harris Dickinson, he could be fine. For me, personally, out of that three, I'd be on board for Jacob Elordi. I think he'd be an inspired choice, and he's got longevity. You really think so? Sunny delight.
Bang! Blood dribbles down.
He knew the whole thing, didn't he? But he's not showing off. Yeah, he fucking is. He's doing a backflip on skis while getting chased with people. Of course he's showing off. James Bond's going to die. He's going to die. No, he's not. But no, man, look, I'm looking forward to seeing who they finally cast. It's been a long-running saga for many, many years now. We've finally got sort of executive and creative stability behind the cameras. We're now solidifying a couple of names. Hopefully they make the choice. It's get longevity. We can settle down and tell some interesting stories with Bond moving into the next decade or so, and having Denis in there as a sort of cherry on top. So I think the future's bright for Bond just now. I just worry about what the fuck, where are they getting the stories from? There was a limited number of novels came out. Are we just going to keep rehashing the same stories time and again? That's my one concern. Because when you start getting off the beaten path, we've seen that with Rings of Power as well, and Amazon. It's a slippery slope.
Start with George R. Martin as well.
Oh, for fucking God, yeah. Fucking God. Still get PTSD from that. Jesus Christ, they told 3 seasons worth of stories in 3 episodes. It's like, what the fuck is going on here? Daenerys has went from this hero figure who is empowering the little people and want to take back the throne and become a benevolent leader, into trashing everything and burning things down and losing their shit. I'm like, what the fuck has happened? Terrible. God awful. And then they put the cripple on the throne at the end. That was just... That's George's fault though. George is he's a fucking pest. And he's slow as a week in the jail. This guy's going to die before this story's told. Get back to fucking writing those novels and finish your story. You big sweaty beast. But what a digress, man. What was your thoughts? He's one of those guys, Steve, and I've spoken about this before, where you see someone, even from afar, and you think, they smell good. They look after themselves. You know they smell good. Brad Pitt. You don't even have to be in the man's sort of general area to know he looks after himself, he's clean, and he smells fucking good. You just know he's wearing some expensive cologne, and that guy smells dynamite. Bob Geldof smells a B.O. George R.R. Martin, that guy's reeking. That's why he created the character Reek. He does not smell good, and no one's going to convince me otherwise. He smells of fucking musty old Doritos. I digress though. What is your thoughts on that news that we have potentially got 3 actors earmarked to play James Bond in the upcoming reboot? Jacob Elordi, Harris Dickinson, and Tom Holland. The writer Paul Gassi from Forbes has concerns. He thinks it's worrying they're going down this younger route. he thinks Bond should be 40 plus. Well, that doesn't fuel a future franchise. If he's 40 plus, the man will be hitting 60 by the time it comes to its end. And no one wants to see a 60-year-old man running about with a gun. That is not something that anybody needs to see. So I'm not concerned about it. Are you concerned about it? Who would you like to see playing Bond? Would you like to see a Lordy, Dickinson, Holland? You want to see them going down a younger route, an older route? What's your thoughts on Bond? Warts and all. Share it down below in the comment section if you have anything to say at all. That's the place to put your thoughts. Like the video if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Hit the follow button to get notifications. Hit the bell icon to get notifications, I should say. I'm combining the two. Twitch, follow button, notifications button over there to see us live on a completely different platform. All that's left to be said though is until the next time, thank you for watching us and bye bye.